Billions of people across the world believe in a higher power, with many saying that certain events that played out in their life helped to solidify this belief. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 strange encounters. Eerie note mother of 3 scrawled after seeing heaven. Tina Hines awoke after passing away for 27 minutes and immediately reached for a notepad to scrawl a shocking message to her loved ones. It's real. The mother of 3 had always been healthy and was preparing for a hike with her husband Brian near her home in Phoenix, Arizona, just moments before suffering a sudden cardiac arrest. Brian saw his wife drop to the ground and watched her in sheer panic as she turned a gruesome purple. He immediately called for emergency personnel and started giving her CPR, he stated. The mother of 3 was momentarily revived twice by Brian before paramedics arrived and took over. In the harrowing ambulance ride and at the emergency room, Tina continued to flutter between losing her life and being alive. She was resuscitated 6 times before stabilizing in the hospital. When she finally returned to consciousness, she was intubated and unable to speak. However, she had a message to tell, and it was not going to wait. As soon as she could, Tina gestured for something to write with so she could scribble a telling message. It's real. When her loved ones read this message, they asked her what was real. The still intubated Tina simply nodded upward. She says that she saw heaven that day. It was so real, the colours were so vibrant, Tina said. She described seeing Jesus standing before black gates on the backdrop of a bright, glowing yellow light. Tina is grateful to be alive today to share her story. About 90% of people who suffer sudden cardiac arrest do not live to tell the story. But her husband's quick reactions and immediate CPR truly made the difference. Survival rates for cardiac arrest increase dramatically when a bystander can quickly administer CPR. This boosts rates of survival from a grim 10% to nearly 45%. Tina is the perfect example of this unpredictability as someone with no history of heart or other serious health problems. Anyone can experience an unexpected glitch in the electrical system that keeps the heart's rhythm, stopping it in its tracks. This brutal fate takes over 356,000 lives a year in the United States. The vast majority of victims have no memory of their technical passing over, but 10 to 20% have a visual or sensory near passing over experience, according to various studies on this. This phenomenon has been the focus of study for many scientists, and research has begun to unveil the explanation of what is happening in the brain when the heart stops. Once the heart stops beating, blood will eventually stop flowing to the brain. But in the immediate aftermath of sudden cardiac arrest, something unique seems to happen, according to a small 2013 University of Michigan study on rats. When researchers induced cardiac arrest in 9 animals, they observed an unexplained burst in brain activity in the moments that would normally precede their passover. This was not just any activity either. It was observed that in a dying brain they saw a widespread, transient surge of highly synchronized brain activity that had features associated with a highly aroused brain. In other words, the final moments of life, the brain becomes hyperactive and behaves as if it is very much alive, with deeply complex thoughts. They suspect that this burst of surprisingly organized, likely conscious brain activity may be the root cause as to how people experience visions just before they depart from life. Furthermore, religious people are more likely to see heaven during these NDEs than non-religious people. For Tina and her family, the evidence is clear. Heaven is a real place. Tina's niece, Maddie Johnson, even got her aunt's message tattooed on her wrist to remind her of this life-changing moment. Afterlife feels even more real than real, research says. All of us wonder what will happen when we depart from this life. Some think they have the answer, and some accept that they will never know. However, there are a select few that can tell us exactly what happens after we depart from life. Once you go to heaven and live to talk about it, your story will shock the world. Picture this, it is the perfect day. You are on your Sunday stroll through the neighborhood, listening to the songs of birds, soaking up the sun and gazing up at a cloudless sky of pure bliss. Peacefully distracted, you step off the pavement into the street. Brakes screech, horns blare, shock and horror overtake the space. You snap back to reality just as the truck hits you. You are numb and unexplainably dazed. You ask, is this the end? And you know the answer. You are floating above yourself, looking down. People crowd over your lifeless body. The air is buzzing with muted screams. A warm light opens above you. It beckons softly. You follow it as it compels you to a place that feels even more alive than you have ever felt. An indescribable bliss covers you and you know that you made it, only to wake up to the mundane beeps of an ECG monitor next to your hospital bed. The magic is over. The science begins. Near-death experiences, or NDEs, are nothing short of fascinating. Patients in intensive care are scared to tell their stories. Dr. Stephen Lorrays of the Coma Science Group states, "They are afraid people won't take them seriously, especially doctors and scientists. People who experience this once-in-a-lifetime journey are often changed forever. Many claim to be happier than they have ever been, and some no longer fear departing from life. The experience becomes a cornerstone of their lives. Many psychological tests have revealed that memories of ND experiences are much more vivid than any other memory. Those who have experienced NDEs claim that their brush with death felt even more real than real," Lorrays says. The true magic of these events is that almost everyone that experiences an NDE has a similar story to tell. Stories from people across cultural, ethnic, and religious perspectives will often have the same experience. After being close to passing over, some people will report having had an out-of-body experience, having seen a bright light or being passed through a tunnel, all well-known elements of the famous NDE, according to recent studies. One patient of the study claimed, "I felt as if I was sucked out of my body at one point. I was going through a completely black tunnel, very, very quickly, a speed you cannot express because you just don't experience it." His journey continued when he said, "A light appeared at the end of the tunnel. The light was female and she indescribably communicated with me." What happens to our consciousness when we sleep? The human body continues to amaze and perplex us all. It is essentially a machine that works 24/7, only to slightly power down during sleep. While our muscles rest, our essential organs continue without pause. The most pressing question for scientists that study sleep is this: what happens to our minds while we sleep? Thousands of highly trained specialists have tried to answer this question, and it seems that they are inching closer to the answer. A new theory has been formed as to where our brains go when we fall asleep. According to recent studies, a super network in the center of the brain is the missing piece to this puzzle. Researchers in Finland have discovered a central core network brimming with the same activity regardless of whether a person goes to sleep normally or loses consciousness due to anesthesia. It seems that these natural mechanisms provide the powerhouse to human consciousness. Two groundbreaking experiments from the University of Turku have found new information on this phenomenon. These experiments have revealed the inner workings of the brain's central core network for the first time. They have done so by focusing on the connection of consciousness to how people respond when they are asleep. One of these experiments studied the brain activity of people who had been anesthetized, while the other examined how brains respond to natural sleep. With the use of brain imaging and questioning the patient after waking up, scientists found something rather peculiar. The questions that these scientists asked consisted of how aware were you of your surroundings and what did you dream of? Researchers have found that natural sleep and experimental anesthesia are powerful research tools in the study of human consciousness. In the past, it has been assumed that a lack of meaningful response is proof of unconsciousness. However, discoveries have shown that being unresponsive does not necessarily mean that the patient is unconscious. The researchers have focused their efforts on networks in the brain that they believe are linked with human consciousness. They study these areas by measuring the brain activity of patients as they fall asleep and those who undergo anesthesia via a PET scan. PET scans involve an imaging test that allows doctors to see how your brain is functioning. Scientists have located specific regions in the brain that experienced less blood flow when one of the volunteers lost consciousness and more blood flow when they regained awareness. It has been found that general anesthesia closely resembles normal sleep in a way that has been previously disputed, says Harry Sheening. As a result of the minimal delay between the awakenings and the interviews, the current results add significantly to our understanding of the nature of the anesthetic state. Against a common belief, full loss of consciousness is not needed for successful general anesthesia, as it is sufficient to just disconnect the patient's experiences from what is going on in the operating room, explains Analotta Sheening. But what do you make of these 3 mysterious discoveries, and is there more to the afterlife? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.